We drank the blood of some people, but the people were on drugs. And now I'm a wizard. Now I'm a wizard. Now I'm a wizard. Now I'm a wizard. We drank the blood of some people, but the people were on drugs. And now I'm a wizard. Now I'm a wizard.
And now we're all wizards. How's it going, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Let's get locked into painting. We're going to work a little bit on my Golden Demon project for Adepticon, but I also kind of want a palette cleanser. I want to paint a little fantasy dwarf dude too, just for some fun, just to break things up, to give you an idea of where we were with the Golden Demon project for Adepticon. This is the current state. I worked on this a little over the weekend and a little bit yesterday as well. So got a little bit more to do on him. I do want to add in some more other browns into the ground. I think I've got a little too much orange going on. This is where we are with the Golden Demon project. Still got little things to do. So just as a palette cleanser to start things out, we're gonna start working on this little man. Hope you're all having a great day on this Tuesday. Hopefully it's been a decent start to the week for you. So kind of a slow day today, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with a slow day. So we are going to start out with a really dark plum color for the skin, just to give it that life feeling of blood pumping underneath the skin, and then we'll do actual like more skin tones over it afterwards. So we're just starting this out. This is an underpaint, just getting in some nice warm tones underneath, because all acrylic paint is translucent, so colors show through, and this will very quickly be covered over by the rest of the skin colored paint that we're going to use. So he's not going to be like a red dwarf or anything like that. No references to the classic English comedy show. He's also not sci-fi, so that doesn't add to it. But I usually start out my skin tones with a color like this, just so that we have that really warm start. Helps this rest of the skin tones to not feel so dull and lifeless, even though they're skin tones, so they're a little warm. They just tend to be really boring. Hey, Jägerman, how are you? How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Happy Tuesday. We're going to start out with a mix of our skin tone and this dark plum color. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. I will keep an eye on chat to catch any questions anybody has about Warhammer, about miniature painting in general, D&D, any of that stuff. Necromunda, the hobby in general, how to get started, all that fun stuff. if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. What color are you starting with? I started with Pro-Acryl Dark Burgundy. Now you could use just about any color like this. Mold Berry from the newer Army Painter line is good for that. Sanguine Base or Sanguine Shadow from P3, those are good. I think Vallejo Model Color has Black Red, or something similar to that. That's also good. It really kind of depends on what paint line you're using. Citadel has colors like this, but I'm not sure what their names are. But basically, I'm just starting with a kind of a wine red as the undercoat, and then I'm going straight into my standard skin tone colors and working the skin tone up from this wine red into that. And I'm going to leave that wine red as kind of a primary shadow in a lot of these areas. And there's going to be, a lot of working back and forth, glazing, things like that in here. This guy is fairly lumpy, so I'm going to come in here and try and map out where all the upper portions of his fingers are and the muscle groups and things like that. And then we'll use some blending and glazing to get the shadows to work with the highlights. We'll go in between those. So I tend to map things out for myself ahead of time. I map out where my midtones and my shadows and everything else are, just because it helps me to visualize if I get everything mapped out ahead of time. Then I can go in and blend. I just finished on my D&D session. This is the perfect wind down for the master himself. Oh, excellent, Sifi. How did the D&D session go? I appreciate you being here. We had I played in my weekly D&D game last night. It was a pretty low intensity session. Both the DM and I weren't feeling terribly well, so we only went for a short period of time and just cut it off there. We just entered a mercantile city of the Dark Duradin, but it is up on the surface of the planet. They're working. They're running this city to be able to have trade with the upper world. And we're about to go on a shopping montage, I'll bet. Even though my DM hates shopping. He hates shopping sessions and, us going out and buying stuff. He can't stand it. Which is funny. So we humor him. We let him help us avoid that and make it fast. But sometimes you just want to... Sometimes you want to dicker. You know, sometimes you really want to role play out like a bargaining situation and cause some problems for a shopkeep. I'm feeling my character's feeling kind of antsy. We just got out of a long time down in the equivalent of the Underdark. We're back on the surface, and I have thoughts about these Dark Duerden, so I'm gonna have to be careful. My bard nearly died sneaking through a goblin camp with no clear exit, so that was exciting. Nice. He was by himself. That's a Slayer. It is a 3D printed. It is basically a Slayer. However, he had a mess up with his arm. His arm didn't print properly, so this was in a kind of a free discard pile. So I grabbed it and I slapped a shield on him. So he's not like really a Slayer, because Slayers don't use shields. But mostly he's just a palate cleanser mini. We've been working on other stuff fairly intensely, and I just want to quickly throw some paint on a dude. We're doing 5th edition. I grew up on it, and the guys I'm playing with are learning it from 2nd edition. Oh wow, that's a big change for them. That's a big change for them. My first game was 2nd edition AD&D, way back in the day when I was just before 5th edition came out, or just before 3rd edition came out. But I've been enjoying 5th. I really did not enjoy 4th, so I didn't play it much. I played Pathfinder instead. But 5th has been good. Every system has its ups and downs. Every system has its pluses and minuses, for sure. Then the 5th is certainly not without its issues. So, but overall I've enjoyed it. I definitely like the bards in 5th a lot more than I like the bards in any of the other editions. I played Bard in 3rd edition and in Pathfinder, ironically, because it was so bad, but I enjoyed it. I'm going to start the hobby lurking in your streams. I just bought Pro Acrylic paints today. Oh, that's fantastic. How is Necromunda played? Is it more like an RPG or a war game? It is... That's a good question. So it is still a war game, but there is still RPG elements in that your character, your warband, your gangers have some skills and some abilities, and then after the game ends, if you're in a campaign, there's like ongoing status effects, and they can grow and become more they can become stronger and things like that, or they can become wounded and have to heal. Sometimes they'll have like permanent disabilities or permanent damage to their stats and things like that. But it is still far more of a war game than it is an RPG. Yeah. Just because there just isn't a huge there isn't just a rich a level of detail when it comes to the RPG elements. There's not a huge amount there. There's little bits. There's elements of it, and you know, Necromunda, for certain game types like narrative stuff, you usually have to have an arbitrator who can, you know, kind of help craft the story and call ties and help run things like that. But so there's almost a DM, but it is certainly not necessary for all games of Necromunda. But yeah, within Necromunda, you've got your gang, and then you've got your opponent's gang, and there will certainly be conflict between your gangs, but it's not always guaranteed. Sometimes it's more you are getting in each other's way when it comes to what your objectives are for the scenario, because sometimes you've got scenarios that are not mutually exclusive, but you just kind of get in each other's way by accident, and that ends up creating conflict because you don't really understand that their objectives aren't the same as yours. So, you just kind of assume that they're gonna go after the same thing as you, but that's not always guaranteed. Sometimes the clash is more over misunderstandings, and you can talk it out if you want to, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of the game, right? It's about playing and beating them. It's like they're after your stuff. That's your stuff. They're after it. You got to defend your stuff. You got to defend your turf. Can't let them take your stuff. This is my first tabletop bard. I usually play wizard or sorcerer, but I wanted to learn something new because they're all learning. That's awesome. Hey, Nowville, how are you? Yeah, bard in 5th edition's a lot better than it was in really any of the other editions. The other editions is just you're a bard, so you're useful in very specific circumstances, and you've got general buffs, but that's about it. So, because I'm going to paint this guy with fiery red hair, I'm starting out the hair with mahogany. So this is a nice, rich, dark red that I really like to use for redheads. To start out just as the shadow color, because it gives me a lot of room to push the orange up higher. And make that look a lot more punchy. So starting with this darker color is really helpful. So gotta let that dry. Tricks are for chubby kids. Do I eat meat? Yes. Yes, I am a meat eater. Now, while I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing well. We're just kind of plugging along, working on this as kind of a palate cleanser. We will be working on my Golden Demon a little bit tonight. But I kind of just wanted to focus on something else for a little bit. I wanted to check before I said this. I just made the best hamburger I've ever had in my life, and I think it's changed my outlook on life. Oh, that's fantastic. What was different about this hamburger? What was life changing about this this hamburger? I appreciate you checking to make sure it wasn't something that would upset me. Although, I would not have blamed you had you not checked. No worries. Look at that little belly button. Look at that little belly button. It's so cute. Steve, I didn't know you were submitting something for Golden Demon. That's awesome. Yeah, here it is. This is what we're working on. So this will be in the cabinets at Adepticon. This was in the cabinets last year. I submitted this last year, and then I got a notable pen, which is good. I'm hoping to get the same thing or better this time. But I took a lot of the feedback I received from other painters on him when they looked at him both in the case and out of the case, and tried to apply a lot of that feedback to him, pushing the highlights a lot harder, pushing the contrast more with darker shadows, and then better outlining, better dark lining on everything, and then also trying to get that deer head to be rendered a lot better, which it is now, but man, it was pretty rough before. And then of course the helmet, like the helmet was just gray, and it didn't stand out at all. So now we're trying to go with that kind of shiny gold glass type of look to really help it stand out against everything else. But also because it's gold, it kind of goes in with all the other trim and all the other gold bits here. Thank you. Yeah, there's still stuff to do on him. There's still stuff back here I want to do. I still want to work on his hair. These pipes need more work. Oh, the glowing tops of these reactor, whatever they are, I want them to be kind of like this, to have like glowing dots, but then also showing that the heat it's red hot around there. Need to do that on the back, and then we'll be a lot closer to being done. But we'll work on him a little bit later tonight. I still want to work on this dude. I left some sweet onions and mushrooms in a salt brine all day. Oh, interesting. Then sauteed them up in some Jack Daniels and mozzarella cheese. Wow, that sounds phenomenal. And then used a 60-40 Wagyu blend I made into burgers and put the mushrooms and onions on top with a special sauce I made with the mustard cheese and bacon. Jesus Christ! That sounds like a life-changing, perspective-altering, yeah, that sounds life and perspective-altering, life-affirming even. Good Lord. Yeah, that burger would absolutely put me in a coma too, and cause me to re-examine many things about life, probably. That sounds amazing. Well, good. I'm glad you got to make and experience that. Because you make it, you made it, and you know how to make it, you can then experience that again in the future. I mean, assuming you would have put that much work in again. So that sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds like it was absolutely worth it. I almost cried when I bit into it. Sounds almost salvific. Just like salvation of the taste buds. Hey, muscle babies. Yes. Yeah, he's kind of a muscle baby, isn't he? I didn't see his legs. I thought he was just beard pants. Yeah. I actually he's barefoot. I really need to work on his feet. That burger to put me with the wings would be silver wings would be a very funny model. I thought it was Gimli Spring Break. I mean, it could be. He could be out on the beach, near the entrance to the mines of Moria, and after beating the dweller in the deep, he could be just chilling out there with an ale and some red meat off the bone, giving himself a quick break. I mean, they gotta get their vitamin D somehow, right? So I'm taking this this dark umber, and I'm using this to base coat all of the gold areas really quick, because this is going to be kind of the shadow color for the gold non-metallic metal. And this whole guy is going to be painted up fairly quickly. We're not, we're not spending hours and hours and hours on him. Hey, Dig Batty, how are you doing? I like the axe is bigger than him. Yeah, it is almost bigger than him, isn't it? Yeah, the shield actually blends into him fairly well. Just pulled this shield out of the bits bin, because his arm didn't print right, and that's why I was able to get him so easily. He was just in kind of a throwaway pile at a local convention. It was like, that guy looks cool, I want him. And so his shoulder didn't print right, so I just took went into the bits bin, grabbed a dwarven shield, and slapped it on. It's working out pretty well. Let's see. Gimli at Mardi Gras. Yeah, he needs beads. Now I'm just picturing him pulling his beard open for beads. There you go. See, that's how that's done. How's he gonna get beads over his mohawk though? Like look at this. The mohawk goes down into a mullet, so it's a mohawk up here, and it goes down into a long, straggly mullet down his back. Like how is he getting the beads on? I'm not sure I want to think about that anymore. Is anybody working on anything this fine evening? Is anybody looking forward to Adepticon, or anybody have any local conventions they're going to? I'm actually going to a convention immediately before Adepticon. I'm going to a local convention called GameStorm, and theoretically I will be teaching a couple of classes there. That's the plan anyway. Although the person I've been talking to has not returned any of my emails. So I don't know if I missed anything, or I'm not sure what's happening. But I got my badge. I'll be there the weekend before Adepticon, and then I'll have a day to kind of pack for Adepticon, and then off I fly. I'm very excited for Adepticon. I'm excited for this local convention too, because it's the first time I've been able to go to this convention in many years. But I'm always excited about Adepticon. Adepticon's my favorite convention so far. Really is. kind of my preferred home convention. It's not nowhere near where I live, so it's not like home, but it's a convention I think of as kind of my home base convention. Just use his shield as a bowl for the beads. There you go. Hey, he just collects them and rehands them out because he doesn't want them caught in his hair and beard. See? He gives back to the community. He gives back. That which is given to him, he gives back. Are you sure that isn't a mohawk into back hair into you know what? I'm not, and I'm not. I don't want to think about that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the physical morphology is for this particular type of dwarf, because this hair back here, like, it's in that kind of weird zone of, like, I don't know if that's back hair down his spine or if that's just literally long hair out of the back of his head. I don't know. And if it's long hair back hair out of his spine, then I don't know how far that goes down. And I don't want to know how far that goes down. I have zero interest in knowing how far that goes down. But you do you, boo. If you want to know, you are welcome to go find out. Okay, so now we're going to get out our burnt orange. I'm going to use stippling here on the top, just because all this hair, this is where all the points of the hair is, and I don't think brush strokes are going to represent that terribly well, so I'm just going to use taps of stippling here on the top to do lots of small little dots. That'll reflect the expected texture there a little bit better. Then we can go back down the back here, try to follow some of these strands of hair, and then this upper area where it's really, the strands of hair are really close together. I'm just going to try and make it kind of streaky. You can go back and forth a couple times with some of this. Who's this little dude? This little dude is just a palette cleanser. He's a random 3D printed mini I found at a convention that somebody was just giving away. So why is this not wanting to focus on him? So he wasn't fully printed properly, so that like his shoulder and his arm was just flat, like the 3D print failed there. So I just slapped a shield on it onto the arm to cover that up, and now he's just a dwarven shield dude. And so we're just having some fun painting him up real quick. Just something fun to do. We can't always go really hard on like a Golden Demon project, right? We can't always be going hard all the times. Sometimes you just need to be able to breathe, and sometimes you just need to disengage from the hard project you're working on, and paint something fun to remind yourself that this is fun. This is supposed to be enjoyable. You're painting tiny little army people. It's not that serious. So make sure you have fun. And that's kind of what I'm doing with the palette cleanse. I was like, I need to work on something that is not that important and still allows me to do my creative thing that keeps me sane without having to worry about a convention or without having to worry about a competition. So we're going to paint this little man. And we're not going to take it too seriously. I'm going to let that dry, just so that the orange has time to settle in and fade as acrylic paints do. They always fade as they dry. So we're just going to let it do that before we come back in and do some additional work. Okay, let's see. This, while we're letting that dry, I'm gonna get out some paints for the non-metallic steel, just so I can kind of start on parts of that. Get that base coated in. Now this raised inlay here in the very center, I want to keep that gold, so I'm not going to base coat that. We're not going to paint that as steel, but everything around it's going to be steel because that's going to be closer to striking surfaces and things like that. Stuff that actually gets smacked around a little bit. But we'll keep some gold in the center of his axe because it looks fancy. Nice and decorative while staying functional, which I think dwarves would be very keen to do. Keep things functional but also show off their craftsmanship and their pride in their work, so they would have fancy elements to their weaponry and their armor and the like. And of course we've got the fact that his axe is chained to his arm. So we're going to hit these links with silver, or make them steel. So we're going to hit them with our beginning color. The chain on his face I decided would be gold because it's more decorative. It goes from his ear to his nose. So I figured that was more of a decorative piercing rather than something practical, so we kept that gold. But this one, because it's more practical, it keeps his weapon on him all the time, we're gonna make sure that's still gold, or that's still steel. If Isildur had as many kids as Robert Baratheon, the Fellowship could have been oops all Aragorns. That's true. That could be true. Isildur's heir. Now, would he have gone the same thing as Robert Baratheon and just like not acknowledged them, or just not, not see what was happening with them? Would he have done the same thing? Baratheon acknowledged most of his kids, I think. Certainly not all of his kids. Even acknowledged ones that ended up not being his kids, because his wife was perv. Technically, Aragorn was a homeless guy, and nobody acknowledged him until he took the crown. That's fair. I mean, nobody important acknowledged him, like Gondor or anything like that. But like the Rangers knew who he was. Some of the elves know who he was. Gandalf knew who he was. But like all the stuck-ups in Gondor and Rohan, yeah, not so much. Bunch of losers. Nowville, let's see. Do you have any tips when it comes to thinning paint? I feel like I tend to accidentally over thin things so often when I've done the same amount of water in the past and it's been fine. I can't speak to it. I can't really speak to like the inconsistency you might be experiencing. It might have something to do with the humidity in the air. It might have to do with how mixed the paint is. So if it's started to separate and it's thinning out a little bit, it might be thinning. It might have a different effect. Are you using the same brush to measure out how much water you're getting out, or using different brushes? Because different brushes have different amounts of water in them, so that could be part of it. But the most important thing that I'm finding out, and that I'm developing a better feel for, is not thinking, okay, this is how much water I should put in to a single drop of paint. It's more work with the paint and say, okay, this is too thick, and add tiny bits of water to it until it feels like it's the right amount. Because there's no magical number. There's no magical number. There's no magical consistency. There's no formula that's going to work for everything. The closest thing you're going to get as a formula is rule of thumb of 1 part paint to 1 part water, but that's just kind of your beginning point if you're thinning your paint at all. And you don't always need to thin your paint, especially if you're depending on the technique or the effect you're trying to do. But I would encourage you to, instead of thinking of it as like a formula that the consistency of milk is fine, but that's still really thin. I would work on getting used to understanding what the paint does and how it feels and what it looks like and how it spreads around your palette when you have it at the consistency that you like for a particular technique, and focus on achieving that consistency when you're thinning new paint down, as opposed to trying to do like an equal amount of water. Because there are different things that can affect it. There could be water on your palette that could be adding to overhydrating your paint. It could be a more humid day, which means that will have an effect on the humidity, or like the amount of water that's in your paint. I think it's more useful to focus on what the consistency that you want feels like and what that looks like, and then use a small amounts of water to get to that point. Does that make sense? And consistency of milk is not wrong at all. It gives you a general idea of kind of what consistency you want to go for. It gives you a mental image of what it could be. But consistency of milk is not always going to be like the most descriptive, or it's not going to always help you get to where you want to be. But it's a decent starting point for certain. Okay, so we're gonna come in here and start doing a little bit of detailing, picking out some details here. So we got an under eye here. That's gonna catch light, and it'll be a little bit of a bag underneath. Right underneath that eye. And then he's got his eyebrow, which I need to hit with that hair colors. Get a big old bushy eyebrow here. Orange, and I do want to use this orange in a couple spots and pick out a couple larger high spots on the mustache and the beard while we're waiting for the eyebrow to dry. Go. You look how quick he's coming together. We're not even a full hour into the stream, and we've got a lot done. About 7 minutes out from our first break, which is usually at the top of the hour. Where's the best place to get brushes? My recommendation for brushes is to start out fairly cheap. Go to Fred Meyer's or go to like an art store or something like that and buy cheap brushes. These are the types of brushes that I buy and I do like a huge percentage of my work with. These are cheap synthetic brushes. These are not fancy, expensive brushes. So these are good, and you can get a pack of 5 of these for a few bucks. But if you're talking about getting into fancier brushes, either synthetic Kolinsky sables or full Kolinsky sables, then I can recommend Game Envy brushes. Game Envy's sables are good. Monument Hobbies sables are good. Those are 2 hobby brands that I've used quite a bit. But then also Zim, it's an art company, ZEM, and then also Rosemary and Company. Those are good. Those are companies that are good to get sable brushes from. But for just ease of purchase, I'd say like your local art store and just buy some cheap synthetic brushes to start out with. Unless you're getting like super heavily into painting, there's very little reason for you to need a sable brush. most people will everything they need out of a brush is gonna be met just fine with a normal synthetic brush. Just started my Warhammer hobby, about to do the gold trimmings on the Ultras. Oh, very cool. Nice. I like the Ultramarines. I know they get a lot of hate, but I actually really like the Ultramarines quite a bit. Of course, I also like the Word Bearers. So, like, I hate the I like the two factions that, like, absolutely detest one another because of betrayal. Like, if you read the Horus Heresy at all, the Word Bearers did the Ultramarines dirty at Calth. They did them dirty. Like, hey, we're friends. Like, at one point, the Ultramarines and the Word Bearers are really close. They had a lot of really close friendships, and then the Word Bearers are just like, yeah, we're gonna stab you in the back now. So they did them dirty, real dirty. I make a lore cast in the introductory set. I'm hooked. Excellent. We're listening to a podcast about the Horus Heresy. Nice. Very nice. Yeah, if you like lore and you're on TikTok, I very much recommend you check out Hoodguard. He's basically kind of like one of the best lore guys on TikTok. He does 3 videos a day. A lot of it is lore. He also does news, but he streams for about 2 hours most days, and his painting's incredible. Like, he's gotten to like competition level painting within a year. He's an extremely talented, very, very smart, very, very driven, gifted guy. So definitely recommend you check out Hoodguard. He's awesome, especially if you like getting lore at all. And he covers Horus Heresy lore. He also covers 40k lore. Doesn't do Age of Sigmar or Necromunda or any of those. He's strictly 40k and 30k. But he's awesome. He's got like over 300 videos. Do I dry brush? Periodically. I don't use a huge amount of dry brushing. There's nothing wrong with dry brushing at all. And anybody tells you the dry brushing is wrong or you shouldn't dry brush needs to go soak their head. Dry brushing is a method. It is a technique to achieve an effect. And most techniques can be used in multiple different ways to get the effect you want. So there's nothing wrong with dry brushing. And anybody says that there is something wrong with dry brushing needs to stop being a dick. Being a douche. It is an extremely effective technique that even a lot of competition painters use periodically in specific circumstances. I'm just not using it a whole lot right now because I want to have more control over what I'm doing, and dry brushing doesn't have as much control. Yeah, no worries. Alright, I'm gonna snooze the ads here real quick. No, you're very welcome. Happy to try and give some advice. I can't always recommend that my advice is amazing, but I'm happy to share my opinion. I mean, what am I saying? I'm on the internet. I'm supposed to be like an influencer or something. No, my advice is the best. Everyone should listen to my advice. And anybody who ignores my advice or doesn't align with my advice, they're wrong. They're wrong.
Never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives
precisely when he means to. Smiling Beagle Studio, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in. How was your stream? What'd you do? What'd you work on? And Jinkman Huffer, how are you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Happy Tuesday, everybody. For those of you who are new here, my name is Useless Wizard. I am a wizard of useless magic, and I paint lots of miniatures. You are currently hanging out in the great library of magic. We're in my study. You can hear the fireplace in the background. You can hear people turning the pages in books and enjoying the sound of the grandfather clock spread around the library. I hope you enjoy your time here. And yeah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We are working on a palette cleanser dwarf mini before we get back to our golden demon piece, which is this dude here. So we're going to be putting him in the cabinets at Adepticon. I'm very excited for that. Let's see. Hey, sorry my auto just went wonky, but good stream working on Necromancer of White Werewolf Tavern at the moment. Nice. I like Necromancers. They're a lot of fun. Let's see. Did I miss anything else? I'm just tuning in. Is this an old world dwarf? I love dwarves. That's it. This is kind of stylized after an old world dwarf. This is a 3D printed mini. He wasn't printed well, or he was a failed print, and it failed just as his arm was being printed, so there's a big flat spot on his arm. So I grabbed him out of a free pile at a local convention, and I slapped a dwarven shield on him. So he's not like true Slayer by any means. True Slayers don't use shields, but you know, I needed to cover that up, and I didn't want to re-sculpt his arm or anything. So now we're just having fun with him. Yeah, nice. I'm not sure I'm familiar with White Werewolf Tavern. Give me a second. Paste. Yeah. Dungeon Master Minis. Okay. Necromancer. Ooh, is this the lady necromancer with the 2 death knights down by your feet? That's a great model. That is very cool. Yeah. Nice. Do you have any photos of it, or I don't know if you just started work on them now or not, but love to see any work in progress you've got. If you don't have any, don't worry about it. It's all good. It looks like an awesome model. Pain in the butt to construct. Yeah, she's got a lot of pieces. Here is a link. Actually, let's just show it. She's not in violation of terms of service or anything. That's her right there. Look at that. That's a very cool piece. Yeah, I can see how she would be a lot of work and a lot of pain to put together. One of your entries for Nova? Nice. That's awesome. You and Beagle are doing it together but separate. So are you each doing your own version? Because that's a cool idea. I like that idea. Alright, we got about a minute and a half before we take our first break. I'm not going to snooze the break again here. So when the break starts, we are going to step away. There won't be any painting or anything, so you know nobody's going to miss anything. But I encourage you to take that time to get up, walk around, move yourself, hydrate, use the bathroom. That's what I'm planning on, hydrating, using the bathroom. So we've got about I think now about a minute before we take our break, and then we'll do that. We'll be on break for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. So we'll I'll let you know when we're actually heading out here. Got about a minute. We try to do this about every hour if we can, just to make sure that we're not sitting in one spot for huge periods of time, which is not good for the blood clots, not good for the blood circulation, and certainly not good for the drinking of water if you don't have it nearby. All right, ads are starting here. We're gonna take our break. I'm gonna throw this here so people have something to stare at. Here we go, and yeah, we're gonna take our break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Okay. I'm not screen share. There we go. There we go. Hey, we're back. Thank y'all for sticking around. Appreciate it. Hope you're able to walk around, stretch your legs, get some agua. I was. Excuse me. Ooh. Get the curls of the mustache here. Try and get those highlighted. Nice wavy, well-formed stash. Start. This is going to take quite a few layers here, but we're trying to find kind of a band of hair that's reflecting the light a little bit more, and as these curl over, they're going to catch light at their apex. So we're going to grab some of that there. Orange being a fairly weak color. So it's going to take a few passes, a few layers. It's kind of a quiet night so far. I know I'm not being super chatty at the moment. I just don't want to keep asking what everybody's working on. Trying to think of other things to talk about, other things to fill the void with, but not a whole lot coming up to mind at the moment. Anybody been reading any good books lately or listening to anything lately? I'm trying to catch up on a couple of series. I just finished the first book in the Wandering Inn series. I don't know if I'm going to keep going on with that. Like, on one hand I enjoyed it, but on the other hand, one of the main characters drove me bonkers. And let's see. Waiting on Dungeon Crawler Carl. Oral. There's a couple of series I should probably start over. Get back into, but I have so many different ones that I'm reading. It's hard because once you get like sucked into a good series, you just kind of want to blast through the whole thing, but then you kind of like lose track of all your other series. One of my D&D buddies has an Excel file that he uses to track all of his reading, track all the different series that he's reading through. It's probably a good idea if you've got a large number of them. I should probably do that. But he also uses that to kind of schedule his reading. And it's like, okay, at my typical pace of reading, I'll have this done in X number of days. And then we'll move on to this one. And then we'll move on to the one after that. It's just like, wow, he's fully planned out. I am nowhere near that planned out. Not even close. But it's pretty impressive. Oh, I just got the newly released kind of omnibuses of Dragonlance. Hey, Cookie Crafter, how are you doing? Cook Crafter, how are you doing? Dragonlance Chronicles and Dragonlance Legends, both of those just got re-released as big kind of omnibus versions. I picked up both of those, so I'm starting to read through those again. It's been a long time since I read Dragonlance. It's been enjoyable. It's a nice trip down memory lane, for certain. Just dropping in as I'm home from art class. Oh, excellent. I hope art class went well. No worries about just dropping in. No pressure there. Hope you had a good time at art class. I need to take a closer look at this in my light. I'm missing some of the links in this chain. There we go. Let's see. Art class was good. It may have started a lengthy conversation about physical density of dwarves and what that might mean. That sounds fantastic. There we go. Kind of got his golden nose chain there. We're not going super crazy on any of these, so just kind of trying to give the impression of the metallic surface there. Short summary, someone said their dwarf character turned into a big wolf. I asked if it was bigger than a human, turned into a wolf. They said it was based on mass. I asked if dwarves were denser than humans in their game. Things escalated from there to theoretical fantasy biology. That's wonderful. That is a fantastic art class discussion there. That would also fit very well into like creative writing. For world building and yes, I am in fact painting a dwarf, and that is highly apropos. I guess might be the word. It is appropriate that you had that discussion on the night that I'm painting a dwarf. Yeah, just doing kind of a palette cleanser. And the class itself is world building, making maps, drawing creatures and notable NPCs, etc. Oh, that's a class? That's really cool. Is this like a in-person art class somewhere? Feeling good about the Golden Demon piece? Are you getting excited about Adepticon? Always excited about Adepticon, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about the Golden Demon piece. This is where we are, local community school of art, weekly night class, 8-week run. That's fantastic, Hook. That is awesome. But yeah, here's the Golden Demon piece where we are. We did intensify the orange. I think I want to work some more browns into this, and so it's maybe not as intense in a couple spots. I also kind of want to clean off a little bit because I want some of that black to come back in a couple areas, so maybe not have it as incredibly dusty. So I can just use kind of a damp brush to wash a couple small areas away, just to get some of that intensity to black back in, because I like having that. Contrast there, but I also like having the really intense oranges. Yeah, this is where he is at the moment. Need to work on the hair back here, make this more bright and reflective. Need to work on the pipes. Need to work on the tops of these dynamos or these power cells. And then I'll be more or less happy with where he is. There's always going to be more work to do, but ultimately you just kind of have to make a call at some point, but we still have plenty of time. Yeah, why am I not focused? What is going on here? Here we go. Is that Gotrek? This is not Gotrek, no, but this is not Gotrek either. This is just a Slayer dwarf that I'm putting together. I gave him a shield, so he's not really a good Slayer. But we could call him Gotrek. I mean, he's not quite the same thing as the God Slayer, but he's still pretty dwarfy, pretty Slayery. Still working on him though. Captain Toad, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. I'm going to get a little bit more irregularity in here with some burnt orange. Make this a little bit less, a little bit more textured. Painting question: is thinning your paint something that's obvious, or does it take a bit of practice? No, it takes practice because there are different amounts of thinning you want to do, that you're going to eventually want to do for different techniques. So starting out, I would just say like thinning your paint 1 part water to 1 part paint. That's going to be a good place to start. But based on the color of paint, based on the technique you're doing or the try to effect you're trying to do, you may want to thin it more, you may want to thin it less. So for example, if I am painting the beard here, right, or the hair, and I'm doing lots of lines, but I want those lines to stay where they are and I don't want them to flow around, I might need a slightly thicker paint. But if I'm doing something like the flesh, where I do want it to flow around a little bit, and I want to be able to glaze, and I want to be able to move it around, then I might want it a little bit thinner. If I'm doing, now this is not stuff you have to worry about right now. If you're just starting out, then don't even worry about this. This is farther down the line. But for instance, you see how I'm doing really, really, really thin layers here to try and create a gradient from the shadow into the midtone. That means I've got I want really thin paint for that. So I mixed up some really thin paint there. But what I'm going to recommend is no matter what type of palette you have, whether it's a wet palette or a dry palette, when you get paint out onto your palette, like this yellow here, do not thin this. Leave the puddle of paint, your initial puddle of paint, leave it as is. If you want to thin some paint out, take it off to the side and thin this. Leave this its original consistency, because thinning small amounts of paint is easier than big amounts of paint. And also, if you over thin this and it's too watery, you can take a little bit of your original paint and go back in here, and that way you've always got this to go back to. Otherwise, if you thin this, it can flow everywhere. But also, if you thin this, the only way to thicken it back up is to add more paint from your pot, and that's just using up more paint that you may not end up using. So I will say, have your original paint out here and then move some bits of it off to the side to thin it down. When you're painting, make sure your brush is always damp. Don't paint with a dry brush, unless you're dry brushing. But every time I load up my paint, my bristles are damp. That means that the water there's some water in here between the bristles, and when I load up my brush, it will thin it down a little bit on its own, but also when I start to apply this paint, it will flow off of my brush easier because there's the bristles are damp and they're not soaking up and holding onto that water. But the main thing you want to do when you're getting used to thinning paint, the reason I say it's an experience thing, is because you want to be painting, and then when you notice that paint is flowing pretty well for you, and you like the way that it's coming off the brush, and it feels like you're painting pretty easily, you want to notice what the consistency of that paint is and what you're doing, and then, oh, I'm doing a base coat, or I'm doing some basic layers, and the paint feels really good right now. So maybe this is the consistency I want to shoot for when I'm doing this technique. And then you start paying attention to that, and you pay attention to how thin the paint is when it feels good like that, and then you know to aim for that every single time. That makes it a lot easier because you'll get the idea of like, okay, when I want to do this technique, I like my paint to feel like this or to look like this, so you can thin it down to get to that point. And then it doesn't matter what line of paint it is, it doesn't matter what color or paint it is, doesn't matter how old the paint is, you'll know exactly what to shoot for to get it to the point that you like it. Because every line of paint is different. Every line of paint has different amounts of water that it may need to thin down. And also, as paint gets older, water is still evaporating slowly out of the paint pots. So, you know, an old paint that's been on the shelf for a long time is going to be thicker than a paint that's brand new, even if it's the same line and the same color. So it's more important for you to pay attention to how you like your paint to be and shoot for that, and don't worry about like memorizing, don't worry about memorizing formulas or things like that. That's not gonna be super helpful. It might be helpful to start out with, but in the long run, it's not going to be helpful because it's going to steer you the wrong way more often than not. I think I'm going to be dry brushing my gray nights. The options are kind of staggering. No, yeah, dry brushing's great. Dry brushing's fantastic, especially for metallics. 100%. Go for it. But after you've done your dry brushing of the metals and you get into like painting their scrolls and other things like that, dry brushing might not be the best fit, so you might have to do regular painting too. I know that was a lot more information than you probably were asking for, but I like to share. So sorry if that was a lot more than you wanted. Appreciate every bit of it, dude. You're very welcome. Happy to help. That's one of the reasons why I stream, is to be able to answer people's questions and hopefully help them have an easier time. That's the idea. Why does this keep going blurry on me? What is going on? I've had my models base coated black for years without painting because I didn't want to screw it up. I totally understand that. That's perfectly normal, perfectly understandable. Just keep in mind that you really can't ruin your models. You really can't mess it up beyond recovery unless you have physically unless you have physically damaged the model, you can strip the paint off. You can remove the paint off of the models with like isopropyl alcohol or simple green or LA's Totally Awesome. You can strip the paint off and start over. Or if the paint's not super thick, you can just paint back over it. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. You're not going to ruin your models. And making mistakes is really the only way that you're going to be able to get better, because the only way you're going to get more confident is knowing that you can recover from mistakes. And so you have to make mistakes in order to learn how to recover from them. But you're not going to ruin your models. They may not be as cool as you think when you first start, and that's okay. That's the learning portion. But soon enough, they will be awesome. With Simple Green, do I need to dilute it or straight out of the bottle? Straight out of the bottle. Concentrate. Yeah, you, put it in put the model in like a mason jar with the Simple Green concentrate in it, and then just let it sit for like 24 hours, and then take an old toothbrush to it, and it'll take some scrubbing, but the paint will come off. It will take a bit of scrubbing. I have an old short Tech Marine I bought in Iron Fist colors that I do need to strip. Kind of cute little guy though. Yeah.
Welcome. Make
Awesome.
yourself at home.
Hey, Nismi, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome on in. Grab yourself a chair, join the discussion, or just sit back, relax, grab a book off the shelves, curl up next to the fire, and enjoy yourself. Whatever you choose. I'm happy you're here. Welcome to the Great Library. Thank you so much for the follow. I'm just trying to get some of the simple non-metallic metal done here on this chain, on the weapon. Going pretty basic with it. We're not going super sophisticated at all. Just trying to create the illusion of reflective metal. It's just one more illusion we're doing as miniature painters, because so much of what we do, highlighting, shadowing, all of that, they're all optical illusions. You're trying to trick the eye into seeing something as life-size that is obviously not life-size. And you're trying to trick it into seeing the light reflecting off of it as you'd expect it to, so it looks cool. Or you're trying to trick the eye into saying this is reflective when it's not actually reflective. Not reflective in the way metal is reflective. If it wasn't reflective, if things weren't reflecting light, you wouldn't be able to see them, right? That's how the eye works. It absorbs reflected light from the world around us. Let's see. How would I go about removing basing decoration from a purchased model? Well, anytime you're removing a model from a base, you do need to be careful how you're removing it, just because, like, if you remove it with a knife or something like that, you don't want to stab yourself or cut yourself by accident. So just be careful. But generally, you when I get that, I have to sacrifice the base, and I have to cut the model off the base, because usually it's super glued down or it's epoxied down, and so I end up having to sacrifice the base and just cut the base off from around the feet. But there are, depending on how they did it, there's potentially other options. Yeah, the more you ask and the more you look at what other people do and things like that, the more options you'll become aware of. And that'll, the more options you're aware of, the more creative you can be, and the more decisions you can make, and more creative you can be with your solutions. So all different tools for the toolbox, because there's if it's just a simple base and they're glued on top of it, especially if they're glued on like something like ballast, just like little bits of gravel, well, the thing that it's possible that the only thing holding them on is a little bit of glue onto the ballast, and they're not actually glued onto the base. So you might be able to just pry the ballast off with their feet attached, and then you've got the base and their feet are separate. But there's other situations where maybe the feet are attached to the base, or they're attached in a much more secure manner to the base, and then you don't have as many options. It's very much depends on the situation. But in most cases where I have had to do something like that, I've had to lose the base. But that's not always necessary. That's not always the only option. I don't know if I'm going to get to work on my golden demon. I keep getting locked in on this guy. I'm enjoying myself. Yeah, I need to set him down for now. I do need to work on the golden demon some, at least for a little bit. I'd say we got a good amount done on him in a little over an hour and 45 minutes. So let's pop over to the golden demon piece and evaluate where we are here. Where did those go? I thought I had them out earlier. That's weird. I could have sworn I had some reds out earlier. Did I put them in? I don't really want to open. I don't want to open new reds, so give me a second. So I'm going to use some of these. I do need to invest in an airbrush eventually. Not only do I have Grey Knights, but I also have Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, and Tyranids. An airbrush is a great tool especially for painting vehicles. It is certainly not necessary by any means, but it is a great tool. So I will 100% agree that it is a good tool to have access to. It's certainly not something you need for most things, but I personally would not be interested in painting a vehicle without either an airbrush or without using sponging instead. Painting a vehicle with just a brush, even a large brush, is not something I'm interested in doing. There's too many flat open spaces and would not enjoy. So I would either use makeup sponges to sponge the paint on, or I'd use an airbrush and then do details with a regular brush. But yeah, not interested in painting even a small tank with a regular brush, even a big regular brush. Not interested. Yeah, it is a time saver, 100%. That's dark neutral. Where's my black? There it is. Another few years old now. Have you seen the Tentacle Arm Night Abominate? I have a little bit. I thought they came out just last year. I'm a little time blind, so I might be wrong. Yeah, I mostly focus on the models that I want to paint. I don't actually play the game anymore. But the Knights are really cool, and I was very excited to see the Chaos Knights finally getting some love. They look really, really cool. But am I wrong? Did they come out in like 24 and not 25? I thought they came out in 25. Or maybe I'm thinking of the wrong Knights. Hey, saw you were talking about Necromunda. I just picked up Hive Secundus. Do I need gang books for both gangs in the box to play? No, you should have all the rules in the box for everything you want to play. Now, if you want to expand the gangs, if you want to use any of the other gangs, then yeah, you're going to need the gang books. But both of those gangs, the only rules for them exist in the box. There are no separate gang rule books for them yet, especially for the Gene Stealers. The Spirers, there might be rules for them spread in one of the newer campaign books, but I don't think so. They certainly don't have their own House of books yet. I'm not sure if they will. But yeah, all the rules you need are in the box. Good question, though. Good question. Okay. Do you ever 3D print your miniatures? Yeah. I don't have a 3D printer of my own, but this guy's 3D printed. This is a 3D printed model. This shield is plastic because this was an incomplete 3D print and his arm was deformed, so I just slapped a shield over it. But this guy's 3D printed. Let's see, what else is 3D printed? This model is 3D printed. This beast man with the horn. I've just got him primed. Let's see, what else? This knight that I use for classes, she's 3D printed. Do I have anything else that's like close by? Oh, this yeoman for Trench Crusade, this is 3D printed. There's lots of 3D printed minis, and they're good. Most of them are really good, especially with 3D printers getting to be as expensive as cheap as they are, and as high quality of prints as they're getting. What do I use for a primer? Usually I have, right now the primers I'm using through my airbrush or just painting on are Procryl Black or the Army Painter's Matte Black. If I'm doing a whole bunch of miniatures for a class, then I'll use a rattle can. I'll use I use black Rust-Oleum, because it's actually a primer and not just a spray paint. Because a spray paint is chemically different than a primer. A primer does a better job of attaching to non-porous materials and then providing a porous surface for paint to attach to. Acrylic paint doesn't do a great job. Initially, it doesn't do a great job of attaching to non-porous surfaces until it is completely cured, which can take days. But it can be dry to touch and dry to other paint within a few minutes, but it can take days to fully cure, at which point it's a little bit more robust. But if you're painting and you're working on the model, most likely you're going to rub paint off while it's curing. So I prefer to have a primer just to make sure that paint's got a little bit more robustness to it. Those printed with resin? Yes, those are all resin printed. I don't have any FDM printed minis that are high enough quality at this point, although a lot of the stuff I'm seeing from Bamboo Labs and some of the newer FDM printers, some of their settings and some of their nozzles are getting to the point where they're very close behind resin prints, and they're just where resin prints were just a year or two ago, and so they're getting really good. They're still not quite where I want them to be, but they're getting there. Awesome, thank you for explaining that. I've been 3D printing mine and have had issues with priming. Okay, what are you using to prime? Also, make sure that once you've cured your miniature, after it's been cured, like UV cured and everything, and obviously after you've washed it and everything, wash it in soap and water. Because if there's any kind of surface contaminant, like any kind of dust, any kind of isopropyl alcohol left on that surface, if there's any finger oils or anything like that, all of that's going to affect the adhesion of primer and paint. All of that will contaminate the adhesion. So make sure you've got pretty, you've cleaned your prints. Just an old can I found in my garage. Okay, if it doesn't say primer, then it's not going to function the same way. At that point, it's just a spray can. It's just spray paint, so it's not going to attach the same way. Also, if it's really old primer and if it's ever frozen, it's probably not chemically going to work anymore. I just want to know where to get more Necromunda lore. I'm a huge 40k fan, but I have trouble finding lore for Necromunda. You can find a lot of lore. I started I started some videos on Necromunda lore that I really need to get back to doing. I did those back in December and November. I really need to do that again, or get back into that. But for finding the lore, Lexicanum is really good. It's kind of the unofficial 40k wiki, and it's got tons of information about Necromunda in it, as well as the rest of 40k. Let's see. There are others. There are other places. It's mostly where you're going to find 40k lore. You're also going to find Necromunda lore. Yak Tribe. That's an old forum that has tons of Necromunda stuff on it from back when Necromunda was back before Necromunda was republished. Yak Tribe would be a good one as well. Literally just laid down after building a dreadnought and came across it. Oh, very cool, Wobbly. That's awesome.
Wizard is never
Welcome on in.
Frodo Baggins.
Uh-oh.
Nor is he early. He arrives
Precisely what he means to. Jack of Clubs, painting. Good to see you. How are you doing? How was your stream? What were you working on? Are you going to be at Adepticon? Are we going to see you there, Wyatt? I hope so. I hope you're doing well. We're working a little bit on our Golden Demon piece here. You are well? Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see. Any good books or YouTube content creators that talk about it? That's how I consume my lore. Okay. Books. Yes, there's lots of Black Library Necromunda books, so novels and collections of short stories. So those would be decent. Specific YouTube creators, the Underhive podcast, I think they're mostly gaming with some lore. A lot of them pop in and out. Underhive Lore Keepers is one that some people have talked about. And that's multiple hours long. Apparently Grimdark Narrator on YouTube is pretty good for Necromunda lore. Oh, wait, Adepticon. Excellent! I was working on Zaku from Gundam Assemble. Oh, that makes sense. I remember back in the day when you had some Zaku and some Gundam conversion 3D printed pieces for a Space Marine army. I think that was I remember when you were working on some of those. So it's not surprising that you're working on some Gundam Assemble stuff. How are you finding the models? I have very little interest in Gundam myself. So I have not picked anything up. Although I will say, out of all of the Gundams, I've always liked the Zakus. Just the aesthetic of Zakus. They're like the AK-47 of Gundam, and I've always liked that. But I have yet to pick anything up for Gundam Assemble, and I don't know if I will. But I would be interested in hearing what your opinion of the models are. In case anybody else is interested, and it might convince me to grab a Zaku. Who knows? I was so close to getting into scale models the other day. I was at one of my local scale model stores because they have tons of like terrain stuff that you can use and other things. But I just spotted they had 1/72nd scale Imperial TIE fighters and Vader's TIE fighter. And I was like, oh. And there were Bandai kits. It's like, oh man, I don't want to get into scale models, but TIE fighters. Oh, just wait for our teams to play. Oh, excellent. That's exciting. I'm a mega fan, so it's dope. The model's just a little more simple, less detailed than 40k, but Gundam is a cartoon, so it makes sense. Yeah, that 100% makes sense. So are you doing like one big group team display that's all like for multiple people that's all going to have Gundam stuff? That sounds awesome. I will have to make sure that I take time away from the hobby area in classes to to check that out. That sounds awesome. Terrence, were any of those suggestions helpful? Grimdark Narrator, Underhive Lore Keepers. That's a podcast. But then there's always the Black Library novels as well. So I had to jump in between multiple people's questions there and make sure I was addressing multiple things. I'm just trying to make the tops of these power units kind of just glow with a little bit of heat. So I'm trying to just go from black of the metal out into red and then into orange, and then leave it there. And then the little openings, I'm going to make them sure they all glow. But this is the Golden Demon piece at the moment. Much better than last year. He's been improved a lot. So this is going to be a resubmission from last year, but just with a ton of improvements. I feel much better about him. I actually feel really good about him. But we'll see. Just hoping I do just as well as I did last year. That's, if I can get a notable pin, perfect. That's great. Gotta go, ladies. All right, take it easy, Jack of Clubs. Thank you for the raid. Appreciate that. Oh, I just missed the ad break. Shoot. My bad. I forgot to snooze the ad. Oh well. Sorry, everybody. I am a bad streamer. I are bad at this. Okay, let's go in here and see if we can start marking out where the glow is gonna come from on these little openings here. So I'm gonna start out with some light yellow, then we're gonna hit it with some orange or some yellow, and then go back in with our light yellow for the really bright points, because we're trying to make it seem like these little points are almost like open areas into the heart of the inferno. It's kind of the look that I'm going for here. I know I'm not on camera right now, but these are kind of awkward spots, so give me just a second. Any recommendations on paint? Yes. I would not use craft paints to start out with, and I would not use artist acrylics, both of which are usable, but they take a lot more work to use than is usually worth the time and worth the money. I do recommend using water-based hobby acrylics that are sold by shops that are
at home.
selling miniatures. Army Painter Fanatic are amazing. They're really good. The Citadel paints are good. Viho Game Color, Viho Model Color are good. Scale 75 are good. AK 3rd Gen are good. Let's see. Monument. I like Monument paints a lot. I use a lot of those. I also use a lot of Army Painter. So all of those are really good. It's gotten to the point where most of the paint brands, most of the hobby paint brands, they are all solid. There's no hobby paint brand, or at least no bigger hobby paint brand that I'm familiar with, that is not good. The weakest performer used to be Army Painter, but they have reformulated and they are really solid paints now. So I don't have any hesitation suggesting any of those anymore. But so the most important thing is, if you have a shop near you, then because they're all good paints, my recommendation would be whatever you've got the most access to. If that means that, if your shop only has Citadel, use the Citadel ones. And then maybe if you want to try other ones, you can order those elsewhere. But generally, because they're all really good, there's no reason to not use what is closest and most easily accessible to you. Does that help? Does that help, 10? Does. Good. Excellent. Yeah, no, it's a totally understandable question. A lot of people ask that, especially when they're starting out, because there's just so many paints out there. It's hard to decide. It's hard to know what to go with. So I totally get the question. Have you heard of Gunmetal City? I saw it referenced in Necromunda books. Gunmetal City. That's not ringing a bell, but it might be something newer. I don't see anything about Gunmetal City on any of the wikis that I'm familiar with. Where did you hear about that, Lyrith? Just gives me more ways to maybe cross-reference it, see if I can find out where that's coming from or what piece of lore it's coming from, because I'm not familiar with that at all. It could be part of a like a smaller area, like a small dome or habdome inside of one of the hives that maybe is mentioned in a book or just as in passing. So sometimes those aren't mentioned in some of the wikis, just because they're just mentioned in passing and there's not a lot of information about them, so people don't bother to try and detail them if they're just mentioned once. But it's also possible that I'm looking in the wrong spot. I'd be interested to know if you've where you heard about Gunmetal City, if you can share. If you can't, that's fine, no worries. I got my games confused. It's mentioned in Dark Heresy alongside Necromunda. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably on a different planet or something. Got it. Hey, Daka Flocka, how are you doing? Good to see you. Let's see. See if we can smooth some of this out. Just maybe. Welcome on in, everybody. If you're new here, thanks for dropping by. Appreciate you hanging out. If you've been working on anything, feel free to post in the chat if you've been working on anything. Otherwise, you know, just glad to have you here. Doing well? Good. I'm glad to hear that. So we've been working on this Golden Demon piece for the last few weeks. I did submit this last year at Adepticon and got a notable pin. So we're trying to do the same thing this year if we can. But we've improved it a bunch from where it was last year. That's one of the big goals, is to, like, okay, keep on improving it, keep on making it better, and see how much better we can do this year, and get more feedback from our painting colleagues and painting peers this year, because there's nothing super crazy special about this. There's no big diorama or anything like that. It's not a big statement piece. It's more about trying to push the fundamentals a little bit farther for myself. If that makes sense. Yeah, I don't like that these are things to go. Is anybody else putting anything into Golden Demon at Adepticon? No, we've had some people in here who are working on their own pieces. Or is anybody working on anything to submit to a future convention? And then while we were taking a break from that, we worked on this guy some tonight. This is where we got him so far. It's kind of a palette cleanser piece here. So we've been working on two different things, trying to keep ourselves busy, keep our mind engaged, because after a while you just stop. It's so hard to work on the same model for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So having a palette cleanser, another model that I can go to for a little bit to give myself a mental break from this one, has been super helpful. And they're both kind of dwarves. One's space and a robot space dwarf, and the other one's a fantasy space dwarf. So we're keeping it in the dwarf theme. It looks awesome. Thank you. I heard boxes of StarCraft miniatures game have gone on pre-order. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that and see what they've got. There's a bunch of stuff that I want to get. There's stuff from Conquest I want to pick up when I'm there. I've got a Conquest Founders model on its way. One of the new ones for the Spires. But I don't want a whole lot of StarCraft stuff. I just want a little bit. Just a little taste. See, Jim Raynor and Point Defense Drone? Absolutely. That's, wow, they've got GW prices. Good lord. Or close to GW prices. Damn. Yeah, well, that's the world we're in. I went through a streak of finishing half-done projects and clearing out some of my old backlog earlier this year, but now I'm back to starting a whole bunch of new stuff and not finishing it. Hey, at least you got some of the old stuff cleared out. That's good. But now you need to sit down and, like... You need to sit down and start a project, finish it, go halfway, set it aside, start a new project... And then limit yourself to just a couple, and then bounce around between them, and then maybe you can get them done. Let's take a look at this here real quick. Oh, there's this. The point defense gun looks pretty cool, but Jim Raynor, man, that's who I want. I want to paint him. That's cool. Archon Studios doing that. And let's see, we've got Marines. Yeah, I don't want a whole bunch of Marines. I just want a couple. But I may have to get the... I may have to do that. Now, do they have fire bats? I didn't see fire bats in here. I saw Marauders. Yeah, they've got Marauders, but I don't see fire bats. That makes me sad. Although Marauder would be cool to paint too. But I wanted fire bats, man. Fire bats are my jam. They've got medics. That's cool. And Goliaths. I like that. That's really cool. I'd be excited to paint those. But again, I want Jim. I want Kerrigan. And I want fire bats. Those are the ones that I want. Those are the ones that I want to paint. Jim, which I can do. Kerrigan, who isn't out, and then fire bats, who I don't even know if they're ever going to be out. That's what I want. Is that too much to ask for? I ask you. Is it too much to ask for? Ooh. The 2-player starter set is... MSRP is $230. But it comes with everything. I just don't want this much stuff. We'll see. Wasn't feeling well and lost a potential day of painting yesterday, so I'm catching up today. Some base coating, some detail in small bits, just building everything up. Excellent. But I will get this Golden Demon project to the finish line, even if I'm increasingly afraid I'll be embarrassed to see my piece in the case next to people who have been working on theirs for months and months. Selling less stuff, preposterous, right? It's crazy. Nerdy Tokyo, you got this. You just keep working on it, and then whatever you get into the case... You know that you've put, what time and stuff you were able to into it, and that's the most important thing. And then next year, if you want to do it again, then you can keep improving it. Like this wasn't anywhere near as this good last year, and I put it in the case just to get it, break the ice and just to get it in. I know you being in Tokyo, it might be hard for you to come to another Golden Demon on this side of the world. I believe that you are still in Tokyo, right? I think you mentioned that earlier. That you're still there. Yeah. So I know it might be hard to make a golden demon or on this side of the world again next year, but are there any golden demons or game days on the eastern side of the world? There have to be. I know I've seen events. Can't just be on this side. There was a Tokyo Golden Demon, and like, really? I could have sworn there was one more recently, but I'm probably just hallucinating. There are other painting competitions. And Warhammer's really ramping up events here, starting to build up community side of things. Wonderful. Good. Actually, a buddy of mine is the new head of events for Japan. Oh, that's awesome! That's fantastic. Yeah, keep encouraging that buddy. Keep encouraging them, because, yeah, definitely want, Warhammer and miniature painting in general all over the place. Definitely seems like Golden Demon Asia isn't a question of if, but when. Good. And there are other painting competitions. I mean, it's a ways away, but Australia has their a couple painting competitions. That's the closest that I'm familiar with, but I'm sure not Crystal Brush. That's Cool Mini or not. Crimson Brush. Australia has a Crimson Brush, and I think they've got one other. But that's still on another continent. Okay. Tell you what, I am so happy with the helmet. Like, from this angle, it looks like it's made of glass. To me, it looks like it's super shiny, reflective, and it makes me so happy. Over this direction, okay, yeah, little less so. It looks a little weird, but that's because of the beauty angle is here. This is the beauty angle. Man, that makes me happy. Yeah, this Adepticon is more about being there, meeting internet friends, and just being able to say I entered in Golden Demon. Everybody says they love the concept. I just got to push it as far as I can. Yeah, keep doing it. Keep going. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Ooh. Is that? Ooh, excuse me. Votan indeed. That is correct. This is my Golden Demon entry for Adepticon. I've been working pretty hard on him. Nice. Thank you. Got that. Those close. Need to work on those a little bit. And it's the hair. The plume. That's what I want to work on next. plum. Yeah. Need to make the hair more shiny. I'm not Golden Demon caliber yet. No worries. Neither am I. Neither are most people until they enter Golden Demon. No one believes that they are. So you just got to just choose something, choose a product, or choose a project, and that you can be excited about and try. And I've seen plenty of people of all different skill levels enter Golden Demon. Obviously, the ones at the top of the game are the ones who usually win a Golden Demon, but it is really exciting and encouraging to see people of all different skill levels entering in and just getting their feet wet and breaking that ice and just saying, okay, I did enter. I entered. I didn't die. Nobody laughed at me. So, you know, the next time you can take what feedback you get from other painters around you and then improve. That's what I did. I entered this last year and it wasn't anywhere near as good as it is now. I entered it last year. I got feedback from some of my peers, the people that I knew and I respected. And then I've been applying that feedback over the last year and thinking about it and thinking how I want to improve things. And then, you know, now I'm applying that, and it's a lot better now than it was last year. So, you know, it's all, the best way to do it is just to break through, and that's fine. There's no pressure. You definitely don't have, no one should feel like they have to enter. They don't want to. There's no reason to do that. So, you know, someday, enter someday, that's good enough. Just gotta gotta decide on, okay, I'm gonna try and do this for Golden Demon, and then you gotta sit down and you gotta do it. That's my biggest problem. I keep thinking like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this for Golden Demon, I'm gonna do this for the Worthy, I'm gonna do this for Crystal Brush, or, you know, whatever other competitions are going on, and then I don't actually sit down and I don't actually paint them. I just say I'm going to, and then I don't actually do it. It's the actual getting down to doing it. That's the hardest part for me. So I can say, oh, I want to do this for Golden Demon, I want to do this, I want to do this for this other competition, and then I just never end up doing it. So that's the biggest thing to get over is sitting down and doing it. Just do it. Don't let today be tomorrow. Do it. But it is a lot of work. It is a lot of time. A lot of time put into these for those types of competitions. So it is a big investment of time. It probably levels up skills when you try. It does because you're pushing yourself harder than you probably would have otherwise. So yeah, it absolutely does. It does help you level up, and I do recommend, you know, finding a few people who you can get honest feedback from while you're painting, and then you present, okay, this is where we are. Tell me what you guys think. And then, you know, they'll help you level up too. It's just like, okay, this is great. You missed here. I think this needs to be brighter. You could push this more. I'd like to see more colors here. You know, that type of feedback. That helps push you too a lot. And that's really important as well. That kind of feedback of people that aren't just telling you, oh, that looks amazing. That is very encouraging. It feels good, but it's not going to help push you to the next level. So finding people who you know and who you can trust and who know that you won't take their feedback negatively, getting those people is huge. That's super helpful. I want to learn to base a little bit better. I totally understand that. Learning to base is pretty big. There's lots of good tutorials and lots of good Patreon videos about it out there. I'm right there with you. I want to learn how to base much better and continue to push myself. That's one of the reasons why I did this. Is I wanted to learn how to do this a lot better, and it took a long time to figure out how to do this and get like almost a seamless transition between the wood and the putty and rock. It's a lot of gap fill and a lot of wood filler, and lots of sanding. So learning how to do that, and then also doing the same thing on this guy, making this base. This is not a Golden Demon entry. This is just a guy I wanted to practice making bases with. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that and trying to do all kinds of different bases. It's a whole nother skill. So I totally understand, wanting to work on that. I definitely should. If you want to do some cool, fun bases, you definitely got to practice it and definitely got to figure it out and push yourself. Thank you, Marquis. I have ideas of what I want to do. It's just money and time. Yes, 100%. 100%. That is the biggest thing. Money and time, and just investing. Because investing the time to do this stuff is just it is a big investment. It is a really big investment. To just keep on working on it. Relatively new to the hobby. Well, cool. You've got your sights set pretty high. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. But I'm glad to have you in the hobby. Welcome on in. What got you started in the hobby? If you're pretty new, did a friend drag you in, or what got you going? Finally got around to priming the Tomb World terrain. Rattlecan came out when I was almost finished. Oh no, it ran out. Gonna finish it up with the airbrush tomorrow. Excellent. Long time interest. Cool. That's awesome. That's very cool, Island Hobbyist. Well, welcome on in. I'm glad you're here. That's big. Let's see. The important thing is that the bulk of it does get done for, and now I only did spend like 30 minutes with the airbrush and not the many hours it would have taken to airbrush all of it. That is fair. There's definitely something to be said for using a rattle can to get like a bulk of the work done, 100%. Okay, I want to work on the hair a little bit more, but I kind of pooped, to be honest. So I want to work on the hair a little bit more, the plumage. Probably gonna be okay. I definitely want to work on the leather wrap there a little bit more. I do think I need to work on these pipes back here. They're not quite reflecting light in any convincing way, even though there's not going to be a whole lot of like direct light. These should still have more distinct reflections going on. And then I want to blend this out just a little bit. Then the pipes. I still need to work on the pipes. I was so lazy with the pipes last year that I just like drug gray over them and basically dry brush them, which is not bad for regular painting. It's not great for competition, for Golden Demon competition. So I wanna work on those a little bit. And I think we're going to be closer and closer to being done. I don't want to be working on this until the very last minute, because that just sounds awful. So we will call it before I end up working on this in the hotel room or anything like that. I have zero interest in doing that. Well, yeah, this is doing okay. And we've got this adorable little guy that we worked on tonight as kind of a palette cleanser. Just something else to work on. What else is people working on? Anything in particular? Anybody else working on anything? I know Count Zacula, you said you were working on your Necromunda death terrain, or your Zone Mortalis terrain, I think it was. Or was it the Tomb... Was it the... The Tomb World. Yeah, the Tomb World stuff. Nice. Big fan of the little guy? Me too. Big fan of the little guy. Big fan of the little dude. Still more work to do on him, but he's just a palette cleanser, so I'm not worried about it. Nice slow little project. Okay, I think I need to add a little bit of shadow into the glows here, because I think there's a lip right here and it's not quite reading right. There's not a lot of visual separation between the actual source of the glow and that little shine, so it just looks like it's just paint blotches. But if I can dark line really narrowly under each one of those to show the kind of the lip and the little cast shadow, that's going to help those sell as glow OSL a lot more. So let's see. I'm gonna need a really thin brush with this. Yeah, that's helping them look a little bit more like a glow and not just a blotch of paint. The big part of OSL, just like with non-metallic metal, is the shadow. OSL will generate a lot more cast shadows and a lot more harsh shadows around it than like more normal diffused sunlight or moonlight will. And so finding those areas where the source of the light is going to cast a harsh shadow and contrasting that against the glow that the light is also casting, that will help the human eye read that as actual light source a lot better, and they cast light, because again you're creating that optical illusion of there's light even though it's just paint, and then you've got your cast shadow so it looks right to the human eye, and then your brain starts reading it as what you want it to be. So yeah, because we've got this, because we have our opening here, and then there's that cast shadow just below the opening, and then we've got our glow, this reads a lot more like an opening that's glowing than if we didn't have this cast shadow and it would just look a lot more like a paint blotch. Does that make sense? That's why when you do like glowing eye lenses or other things like that, you've got the eye lens, and then you generally want a dark shadow around the eye lens, and then the glow happens on the outside. If you're doing a glowy eye lens, you do the glow on the outside so you keep that cast shadow there, because that cast shadow from the eye lens is from the lens, around the lens, that helps the whole thing read as glowing. So you want those cast shadows there. So if I were to do this, if I were to make his eyes look like they were glowing other than what they are, like, you know, bright glow, I would keep the lens the way it is. I'd keep the shadow around the lens the way it is, and then I'd do a little bit of red on the outside, right in there, and like maybe right along the top of the ridge right here. But I'd keep that shadow there, and I'd keep the intensity of the lens, and that would help it sell as actually glowing, because I've got that cast shadow. And learning where those shadows are going to be, and then, you know, trying to get them to place them right. That's the thing I struggle with the most when it comes to OSL right now, is getting the placement right of those cast shadows and getting that to look right and function correctly. That's my biggest struggle with OSL. That and glow fall off. Like, how quickly should the glow fall off of the from the light source? Like, and compare that, how quickly that falls off to how bright everything around it is. If it's at night, obviously the glow is going to be more intense. If it's during the day, the glow is going to be a lot less intense, because the sun's is going to be brighter than almost any glow. So it's figuring all that out, figuring out all that balance is it's my biggest struggle with OSL at the moment. Trying to get it to read as light properly. Yeah, that's enough of me monologuing. Hopefully that's vaguely interesting to those of you whose brains have to think like me, and you have to understand why something looks the way it does before you can understand how to replicate it. That's how my brain works, as frustrating as that is. But we'll keep working on this guy. I think we're gonna call it for tonight. Let's go find someone to raid. Who else is active right now? Wow, there's not a whole lot of people. Pikmin's on. He's not normally on. This is Tuesday, right? This is Tuesday, right? We're not... Yeah, we're on schedule. Okay, Tuesday at 6, yeah. Alright, we are going to go raid Pikmin Horror, who pops into stream every now and then, is a fantastic painter. He is also going to be teaching classes at Adepticon and also entering multiple painting competitions, so definitely recommend finding him and meeting him. Let's give him a whole bunch of hobby love over at his channel. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I very much appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. We should be back on Friday for Community Spotlight and continuing to work on our Golden Demon piece. So Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope to see you there. And until then, remember that painting is good for the soul. Have a good night, everybody.